hope I hope the people that are watching me are actually working right now. But law is not a 9 to 5 job. The successful lawyers really don't work 9 to 5. You know, they don't work 9 to 5. They work when other people are sleeping. So, like I say, the path to success isn't paved with gold. You know, um, it's blood, sweat, and tears, and it's when the successful people work when other people are sleeping, so they're least interrupted. I'm one of them. I work when other people are sleeping. I find that is my best time to sort of think and contemplate and all that sort of stuff. So I work in the wee hours of the morning. It's 3:48 a.m. I got court at 9 o'clock in the morning, so I'm gonna go to bed at around 4:30, 4:35, and then I'm gonna be up around quarter to 9 for court at 9. The good thing about courts, for the most part now, is that you don't have to travel out to the courts. You just wake up, you haul on a shirt, you haul on a tie, and you put on a jacket, and you hop on the Zoom. You don't even have to bid or anything before you do that. You just haul on a shirt. You just haul on a shirt, a pants, a jacket, and a tie. You hop on Zoom, and you're in Zoom court. So that's what's up. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna hop into Zoom court. I'm gonna hop into Zoom court at 9 o'clock, and I'm not gonna be the worse for wear. Unless somebody from court is on here right now, they're not gonna know that I've been up until their donkey hours in the morning, wee hours in the morning when all the people are sleeping. I reflect on Guyana because things are things are going very, very well for Guyana. Regardless of how they complain, regardless of the belly aching, regardless of everything, Guyana's economy is one of the fastest growing economies. I mean, but what does that mean? It means that some people are going to be super, super rich. No doubt about that. Some people are going to be super, super rich. And who knows, for the most part, the poor will remain poor perhaps. That doesn't mean that some people aren't going to escape poverty. Some people through determination, through hard work, through grit, through brilliance, are gonna escape poverty in Guyana and get super rich as well. I mean, look, let me tell you this. The APNU AFC wasn't concerned about people getting rich, whether it was their supporters or their sustainers. They didn't care about people getting rich. The PPP has a different ethos. Beg, borrow, or steal. Their friends, their family, and their favorites are gonna get rich. Can't fault them for that. You can't fault. You can't fault the political leadership for tying bundle as they do in Guyana, you could see that the PPP government is quite close to the private sector. It's quite close to the military, and it's quite close to the police. It's, what it did, what the PPP government did when it got into power is it fired the entire police commission. As unconstitutional as it is, which a court found it to be unconstitutional, but they fired the entire police service commission and then installed a whole bunch of people who were friendly to the PPP, and then in the face of legal action promoted a whole bunch of officers. Some of them have disciplinary proceedings. Some of them were not even fit to be promoted. I think they promoted one person twice, and in the second case they also promoted someone who had left the force, and in another case they promoted someone who was involved in a shooting and actually demoted the person, revoked the promotion. So that was kind of embarrassing for them. I've been involved in a whole bunch of litigation, constitutional litigation in Guyana. Last week I got two different decisions. We got the decision on the appointment of the chancellor and the chief justice, and the impasse that has been a problem in Guyana for decades, as a matter of fact. So Justice Damon Young ruled on that situation, and she had a lot to say. She had a lot to say in her ruling, but in the end she found that there was no dereliction of duty on the part of the president, and that the president did not act in any way that was unconstitutional. What she did was she looked at the political situation in Guyana, and she heaped a lot of criticisms on the political opposition. So she heaped a lot of criticisms on them because she said, well, here what? A fundamental aspect of the president not engaging with the leader of the opposition is the opposition determined him not to be a legitimate president, and if he's not a legitimate president, then he's not going to talk to you. That's how the judge Damon Young reasoned with this. She also found that the situation where a chief justice and a chancellor has not been appointed for decades doesn't augur well for Guyana. So this is what she said. She said, for decades, the two political parties in Guyana have been at an impasse in relation to these particular judicial appointments. Regrettably, for too long as there has been no agreement between the president and the leader of the opposition, the country has been without a substantive chancellor and chief justice. This state of affair is a strain to our country's otherwise richly woven legal tapestry. So she writes very flowery language. She says the ingloriousness of our country's unique position has not escaped the notice of jurists in the region, particularly that of the presidents of our apex court, the Caribbean Court of Justice. Sir Byron Dennis, then the president of the CCJ, speaking on, and in quotation mark, the importance of an independent and impartial judiciary, placing the spotlight on judicial accountability, end quote, on the occasion of the 37th Annual Bar Association dinner on the 11th of November 2017, called it, and I quote, a most unfortunate state of affairs, end quote. Justice Saunders, the current president of the Caribbean Court of Justice, several years later, speaking on advancing Caribbean jurisprudence, also criticized the state of affairs as it relates to the appointments of the Chancellor and Chief Justice, or the lack thereof. So she certainly had a lot to say about the criticisms, right? The criticisms of the political administration in not appointing substantive office holders to the position of Chief Justice and Chancellor. But she asked the politicians, which that makes sense. She asked them to move with all deliberate speed, right? To move with all deliberate speed, as opposed to imposing a 2-month deadline for them to get their act together. Sit down, talk, hash out these appointments. You ask them to deal with this with all deliberate speed. They're gonna laugh at you, and there's no way that they're going to move with all deliberate speed to make these appointments. Right? They've been sitting on their hands for decades, right? Now, if they've been sitting on their hands for decades, why do you think there's going to be a change in posture, a change in position now? There's going to be no change in posture or position. They're quite comfortable with the state of affairs as it is, right? So there's going to be no movements in respect to that appointment. And then we had the situation. I dealt with the case of David Granger versus Nascimento. He sued for $2 billion because he said, hey, Nascimento, in his writings, sullied my good name and reputation as a result of the 2020 election. So, I mean, the fallout from the 2020 election hasn't gone away. You've got one election petition still at the Court of Appeal. And we dealt with that months and months ago. we appeared before the Court of Appeal several months ago and argued that case. I'm surprised the Court of Appeal hasn't rendered a judgment yet, but I suspect that maybe they're divided, and there's going to be a majority decision and a dissenting one. So we're waiting on that. There's also the parliamentary secretary's case at the Court of Appeal. We've been waiting for that one for a while too, and that has been reserved at the Court of Appeal, and we haven't gotten a decision yet. So it's been a while. We've been waiting on that one. So it's going to be interesting to see when that one comes down. So we've got the parliamentary secretary's case, and I'm not sure why the Court of Appeal hasn't um, dismissed the appeal by Douglas Mendez as yet, because of course there's the Desmond Morgan case that's on all fours with that case. So I mean, follow the precedents, right? So there's no reason why the Court of Appeal needs to revisit that case or revisit the legal terrain when they've already pronounced that if you're on a list, if you're on a political list, the government of the day, whoever that government is, can simply turn around and say, hey, we're going to appoint you as a parliamentary secretary or a permanent secretary. You can't do that. So you can't appoint somebody who is on the list as a technocrat member of parliament. That's the point. I mean, that was the challenge to Felix and the other one who was the labor minister when the Granger government appointed them as technocratic members of the National Assembly, and it was the same Anil Nadla that challenged that decision. Anil is an interesting guy. So that was one case where he did that. He also did that in the Carvel Duncan case, where he challenged the conduct of the president in terminating Carvel Duncan and telling Carvel Duncan to leave. He doesn't want blood on the carpet. Yet give advice to the president to terminate the Police Service Commission in like manner. So the court handed it to them, and of course, just as Gino Passad told the president, he said, hey, you're complaining about a Judicial Service Commission, a conditioned precedent to appointing a tribunal to deal with the removal of the Police Service Commission not being there. That's a burden for you to bear. That's your burden. Because as president, you're able to invoke the Constitution. You're able to move the needle forward in terms of these appointments to these independent constitutional bodies, which is the same situation that you have in respect to the Chief Justice, right? The President and the leader of the opposition have not met to discuss these appointments, and it's the President that has to make the move, right? If you ask me, if I was to give Aubrey Norton advice, but I'm not a politician, right? I'm just a lawyer. Even though with all those cases I did, people probably think now I'm a PNC lawyer. So I probably got branded now as the PNC lawyer because, of course, it's interesting. I can't even name the cases anymore. There's so many. All the cases of constitutional importance, or most of them, about 90% of them, I was involved in. Christopher Jones versus the Attorney General of Guyana and the Speaker of the National Assembly. That was the Mace case, 469 of 2022. I'm one of the lawyers in that case. 705 of 2022, Christopher Jones versus the Attorney General in Hicken, that dealt with the doctrine of necessity and the appointment of Hicken. I was one of the lawyers in that case. Vince Roy Jordan versus the Attorney General of Guyana. That was the recent case that I just spoke about. One of the lawyers involved in that case. 2022, 001 and 002 at the Caribbean Court of Justice. Jaggio versus Thomas, Attorney General versus Thomas. I was involved with that case. 902 of 2022, Norton versus the Attorney General of Guyana, that deals with the appointment of the Police Service Commission and the Integrity Commission, where the Chief Justice found that the Police Service Commission is not properly constituted and cannot perform any duties until and unless the chair of the Public Service Commission has been appointed. I'm the lawyer involved in that case as well. 994 of 2022, Tabitas Sarabohali versus the Attorney General. That's about the 8 members of Parliament that were suspended. I'm one of the lawyers involved in that case. And then, of course, I just spoke about Claudette Turn and Heston Boswick, which is one of the election petition appeals that's still outstanding. I'm involved in that. And I just spoke as well about Sarah Brown and Kissoon versus Christopher Jones. That's the parliamentary secretary's case. And then there's another case that we're involved in, which is Carol Joseph Smith versus the Attorney General. That case is dealing with local government election. And the laws, you would be surprised. Most of the citizens in Guyana that vote, they don't have degrees, they don't have advanced education. But the laws governing local government election are so much. The laws and the orders, it's a labyrinth. Superset constitutional right cases where attorneys are involved in on the opposite side should not be branded. We must look at the breach and the constitutional rights of every Guyanese and the right as a opposition to bring these cases to court. No, that's a good point. And to go further than that, I mean, the lawyers that have you see how much cases I called out there, super. I mean, where are the lawyers in Guyana to litigate these cases? I mean, there are a lot of interest in all these cases that we litigated are going to stand the test of time for a long, long time, because they were cases that raised very, very important questions that the court had to determine, right? And where are all the lawyers in Guyana to litigate these cases? I mean, the 2 lawyers that have been litigating them are me and Roysdale Ford. Roysdale and I have litigated all these cases, and within the space of a year or so, I'm getting tired of doing them. And so I'm going to take a back seat. I'm going to take a back seat for a little while and let somebody else do them. It's time for me to take a break from it. I mean, in any country where the opposition is perceived to be weak, the government is going to act dictatorially and unconstitutionally, simply because you say, okay, I make these unconstitutional decisions. Who is there to fight me in Parliament? Who is there to give me a hard time in the courts? Who is there to put public pressure on me? If you don't think the pressure from the opposition are effective, you as a government will try to run roughshod over it. And that's what the PPP has been doing, which is very unfortunate. They've been running roughshod. There's a whole bunch of unconstitutional actions that have remained unchallenged simply because um, the people whose rights are violated don't have the strength to push forward, and there's not enough lawyers who are prepared to challenge it. So Super says this: I thank you for being involved in these cases. The list you quoted are questions that must be litigated, or else the government will continue to breach the Constitution, and it's true. I mean, the government will continue to breach the Constitution if there's no consequences for that breach. But the problem as well is the government will continue to breach it because the court's decisions are pretty tepid. There's only one decision where the court really stated it as it is. That was the Slow versus Attorney General of Guyana case, where Paul Slow challenged his removal as chair of the Police Service Commission. I mean, read the decision of the court in the Jordan case. I mean, the decision spoke about the non-appointment as being a stain on Guyana's rich legal tapestry. Yet it doesn't find the president in violation of the Constitution, nor does it find that the president abdicated his duty. And it's the case that more than this government have been in power for 3 years, and there have been no consultation on the appointment of the Chancellor and the Chief Justice. The President simply say, hey, when I'm ready to deal with this, I'm going to deal with it. I got other priorities to deal with. So, the slow march is going to continue, and there's probably going to be no appointment of a substantive Chief Justice and Chancellor until after the next election. That's not a priority for the president, and the court used the term all deliberate speed. Well, what does all deliberate speed mean? You could have given him 2 months to get this going, to put that train in motion, but you don't do that. So all deliberate speed is left to interpretation. In the Norton case, it's the same thing. You found that the Police Service Commission wasn't properly constituted, yet you use the de facto doctrine to uphold all the illegal actions committed by the Police Service Commission, right? You tell them, hey, going forward, you can't act without the Police Service Commission being properly appointed. Yet they're going ahead with promotions. They promoted Troy Doris. They're sending out disciplinary letters. They're traveling across the country meeting with people. So, you're saying, so all those court decisions that come down, even if we win, we lose, because the decisions doesn't provide a form of clarity, or the decisions doesn't lend its way to compliance. Rather, it's honored in the breach more than the observance. So I've drafted a contempt application now for the Police Service Commission. So we're going to bring that contempt motion before Justice George, the Chief Justice, because she heard the Norton case, and they're going to have to appear before her. And if she finds them in contempt, it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to purge that contempt, because they're promoting people. They're They're disciplining people. They're delegating authority that they don't have. The police officers. All that sort of stuff is going on at the Police Service Commission when they're not properly constituted. And the list goes on. I mean, Guyana is so rich now. Like when you look at the money, like this last quarter, they made 352 million US dollars. Right, 352 million. Sorry, 354 million US dollars from the Natural Resources Fund. Went into the Natural Resources Fund as a result of various oil revenues. Right, so Guyana is making billions and billions of US dollars now because of their oil wealth. And you think that one of the things that would happen is that you move to free education. The Constitution says free education from nursery to university, so that's one of the first orders of business, right? You bring that back in. They're not doing that. They're moving with a lot of legislation as well. So in the last sitting of the National Assembly, they introduced Bill 6 of 2023, which is the Combating of Trafficking in Persons Act 2023. There are lots of people who are trafficked through Guyana. Guyana is now a major hub to Central America and the United States for trafficking in persons. So people even come from India to be trafficked, and Haitians and a whole bunch of other people use Guyana as a transshipment point to get to the United States and other countries. And so they're bringing in more robust legislation to combat the trafficking in persons. They've also brought in new legislation to spy on people. So they've brought in an act called the National Intelligence and Security Agency Act. So they're creating the National Intelligence Security Agency that's going to be headed by the Commissioner of Police, who is retiring soon, Mr. Hicken. And when you read that legislation, it's frightening. One of the things about the legislation is that the police are going to be able to intercept communications without a warrant. They're going to be able to breach solicitor client privilege. They're going to be able to have spies in foreign countries at their embassies spying on citizens, and who knows, they might do just like what the Chinese do. The Chinese have police stations in major hubs in North America and Europe. I mean, they found a Chinese police station in New York. There was one in Montreal. There was one in Toronto. So with all this oil money Guyana has and the lack of respect for laws, their own laws, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, we recently had a situation where a permanent secretary, the highest level of public servant in the National Security and Public Security Ministry, the Ministry of Home Affairs, detained in the United States, handcuffed, interrogated for 3 hours, or cell phone seized with valuable highly classified government of Guyana information, and she is deported or visa revoked. I mean, the president said it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. It's very unusual. That's not usual for high level officials, even low level officials, even citizens. That's not a insignificant occurrence where you're detained, you're handcuffed, you're interrogated, you're denied landing in the country, and your visa is revoked so that you can't enter that country. Basically, you're declared persona non grata, right? But that's probably something not unusual for senior officials in Guyana. So, I mean, we had that with Henry Green, where Henry Green was denied a U.S. visa. We had that with other senior government officials as well. So, so it's not surprising. It's probably not surprising at all. It's probably par for the course. But it it really raises some significant and important issues. You have the situation as well with high profile crimes like the Paper Shorts murder. Right, you have that case, right? Paper Shorts, the Paper Shorts murder. That murder that took place outside of Palm Court, right in the vicinity of where the president and the prime minister lives. I mean, that should have been one of the safest postal codes or area in Guyana. Yet you have that as an unsolved case. Right? You have that as an unsolved case. And I'm wiping my nose now like Squidward. The question is, will the U.S. authority act without evidence in the PS matter? Well, no. For the U.S. to act as they did, they would have had to have a high level of intelligence. My understanding is they got a warrant, right? Because you have the manifest, right? The flight from Guyana to the U.S. is to the United States, Florida is what, like 5.5 hours, and they would have seen her name on the list, and she was already flagged as a person of interest. So my understanding is they went to court and got a warrant before she even arrived there, so that they could intercept her and her property, which they did. And that's why they seized her phone, so she wasn't able to contact anyone in Guyana and tip them off that she was in custody. So it's interesting to see how the dust settles on that one, but certainly it's also interesting to see whether bilaterals are affected, the relationship between the U.S. and Guyana, whether it's affected in any way as a result of that arrest. Um, there's the other issue in Guyana with these contractors. I mean, you can't give friends, family, and favorites. Everybody now getting road contract. Everybody getting contract to build roads, bridges, and buildings. Let's hope that Guyana doesn't become like some of those other countries where those high-rise buildings are collapsing. Even in New York City, it happened recently where 2 parking garages collapsed I think one person died in New York as a result of that. And then I forgot which country there was where buildings started collapsing and contractors started getting arrested. In Guyana, anybody could be a contractor now. They're gonna have to, I mean, you want the political party in government to distribute the wealth. You want them to distribute the wealth and to make their supporters wealthy. Nothing wrong with that. I don't see nothing wrong with that. Like I said, that was a feeling of the AP and UAFC. The AP and UAFC, when they were in power, they hardly took care of their people, and especially the young people, and they sat on their hands. They didn't went out to vote. Ronald Hanover says under the PPP, um, bleep 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 is an entitlement. It's a known fact. I mean, let's hope that you're wrong, and let's hope that the machinery of law enforcement, as compromised as it is under the leadership of certain people, let's hope that the laws are enforced impartially. Yep, let's hope that the laws are enforced impartially and that people act with integrity, even though we know that certain people are not going to act with integrity, but we have to sort of have that hope that our institutions of power, that the instruments of state are going to be exercised for the good of the people. And the good of the people means ensuring that people are safe, ensuring that crimes are detected. I mean, Guyana has a large spy network. They hired this Chinese technology firm Huawei to put cameras everywhere. You walk into the public, you walk into the Ministry of Home Affairs, and in the permanent secretary's office and in the minister's office, there's televisions with banks and banks of cameras showing live streams of what's going on the streets. You would think that with all those live streams, it's easy to find people who are committing crimes, to arrest them and prosecute them, because of course the videos are objective evidence, and those videos could be tendered in court as objective evidence and for the truth of their contents. You don't need an expert to validate a video that shows someone is committing a crime, to show a crime in progress, or someone just committed a murder or any other crimes that they commit in Georgetown, where those videos certainly show. I mean, speaking about under the table deals, I mean, certainly if we're talking about 10 contracts, there's a public procurement commission. It would have been nice if the public procurement commission was really a body that was working. I'm not sure what the public procurement commission is doing. I know it's chaired by one of my friends. Well, I say friends, Pauline Chase. I don't think we're friends, but I'll say it that way. One of my colleagues at the bar, Pauline Chase, is chairing the Public Procurement Commission. We were all good. We're all good during the elections and the aftermath of the elections. But since I started doing all these cases, a lot of people that used to talk to me don't talk to me anymore because, hey, even though it's not true, this is Selwyn is a PNC lawyer. I don't think the PNC likes me, nor the PPP likes me. nor the AFC, nor the APNU, because, quite frankly, I can't be bought or sold. So, money doesn't fill my eyes, so you can't bribe me. You can't buy me out. And I call things as I see it, so you're not gonna like me, and I'm quite fine with it. I'm not on a popularity contest or a contest popular, so that doesn't bother me. Yes, I mean Guyana Constitution makes a dictatorship inevitable. I mean, when you call the president a supreme being, right? They call him a supreme being. That's what section 8, let me see, I think it's section 7 or 8 of the Constitution. He's the supreme authority, right? That's what they call the president, right? If you call somebody a supreme authority, then the person does feel that they're a supreme authority, right? And they act like a supreme authority. They act like nobody can stop them. I mean, history was made. History was made on the 24th of March. History was made on the 24th of March when we got that decision from Justice Gino Prasad. Right now, that's the only decision we got from a court that found President Ali has